Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however your day has been going. Welcome to today's lesson. Before we get in, just give yourself a minute to get settled, get a notebook ready for taking notes, or pull up, side by side, pull up a doc, or if you just want to take notes on your phone, type along with your thumbs, that's all good. Before we get into the lesson itself, I do want you to take the time to consider printing or at least previewing the lesson slides, along with there's an accompanying handout for like questions that motivate and evaluate our research. So do take the time to print those, or at least open them up, download them to your computer, possibly, because I want you to have the information on the slides instead of using your note-taking time to try and copy down as much information as you can. It will be more beneficial for you just to kind of listen along, watch along, and write down only just the key ideas that stand out to you. And I'm also going to ask us to start, even though I'm never going to look at your notes, and I know not everybody takes their notes as they should, but for those of you who want to, put in the most effort and get out the most outcome, I'm going to invite us to start using the lesson notes and the lesson moments to write down our own ideas. So we're going to talk a lot about research. We're going to learn these new concepts about discourse and discourse community. We're going to look at what kinds of sources that we might want to access, what kind of questions we might ask along the way. And while we do that, since you're going to have access to the slides, and I'll bring printouts to class if you don't have access to a printer, but instead of just copying down info from the slides, I want us to use your notes to say, how does this trigger my own thoughts? What ideas pop into my head when I listen and watch along? How might I apply this to my own work? So rather than just information from the slides, use your note-taking as a moment to inspire your own thoughts, directly connect to your topic, your research, and your interests. Okay, so jumping in, after that long preamble, I assume we're all set up and ready to go. So let's just get started. Our lesson today is academic research. The purpose is understanding the discourse surrounding your chosen topic. The agenda for today's lesson: first of all, the purpose of academic research, some guidance for refining your topic, understanding your discourse surrounding your topic, and this will be different for everybody, strategies for entering into the research process, specifically focusing on the idea that research is a cyclical process. It's not just a linear process. We don't go straight from research question, valuable sources, synthesis, and argument. Instead, we're always re-questioning and researching. That prefix re is really the most meaningful aspect of the concept of academic research. And then I'm going to point out the handout again, guiding questions to motivate your research and evaluate your sources. This is going to be very important because it's going to keep us focused on the pillars of our research goals, our research interests, our research values. Because as we get into the discourse community and as we start seeing other viewpoints, it's very easy to get caught up and led astray, to go along with like, oh, everybody seems to be talking about this topic. Oh, I'm going to search further. And you can sort of get swept away from your original interests or interests, goals, and purposes that are true to you. So I always just want to remind us to like bring this home to, why do I care about my topic? How do I want to engage with my topic? Even though Unit 2 is about engaging with other people's viewpoints, we really want to keep that as close as possible to your personal goals, rather than getting swept up in the crowd and in the momentum. And then the bulk of the assignment, I think, is going to be like how to seek and access certain resources, specifically through DVC, and then a final note about making sure to document your research. As we're about to get started, if you are a note-taking ambassador for this lesson, I will remind you again, you don't need to copy everything down, and do still engage from your thoughts that come up, your perspectives that come up, connections and links directly to your topic and interest along the way. It's not, your notes aren't going to be, for somebody to necessarily replace their own notes. So don't feel shy about including your own topic of interest within your notes. All right, I think that's all the disclaimers, so let's jump in. First topic, the purpose of academic research. So the purpose of academic research is to engage with multiple perspectives, of course. To become a critical thinker and to think critically, it requires that we contend with and engage with multiple viewpoints about the topic. Academic writers need to be familiar with all of the major concepts, questions, problems, goals, and consequences related to your chosen topic. In order to do your due diligence, you need to get familiar with the ongoing perspectives around the topic that you want to research. However, it's not just a scavenger hunt of finding information and reporting it back. In fact, the research process is designed to encourage deeper learning and sustained engagement. So continually re-engaging, diving deeper, looking from different perspectives. By exploring, evaluating, and connecting with the ongoing conversation, or in other words, the ongoing discourse. So the research process encourages us to learn deeply in order to arrive at a relevant, contextual, and meaningful view toward our topic. So yes, even though project number 2 is not about developing your own argument, this is the groundwork. These are the important contextual processes for when we come to Unit 3, when you will be developing your own argument. So it's always important to suss out the topic and the conversation before you just jump in. With that in mind, the purpose of academic research, it will be important, usually at this time, to refine, refocus, and reframe the way you're accessing your topic. So revising the scope of your topic or the questions that motivate your topic can help you narrow down your interests. Otherwise, the field of research is just going to become overwhelming. In Unit 1, oftentimes when we explore our own viewpoint about a topic, it's often very broad, very generalized. For some people, it was pretty specific, but in general, it's more like overall, what do I think about this large topic? But when you're diving into research, it's going to be much more meaningful and fruitful to engage with very specific, very focused questions and perspectives. One way to get into where you want to narrow down your focus is to start with the overall view of the issue, breaking that into generalized concepts, arguments, consequences, and then looking for specific viewpoints and specific angles. So that's where you are going to direct the flow of your research. Which questions are you interested in? Which viewpoints are you interested in? And then within that narrowed down discussion, How are there missing pieces? Maybe a perspective has been ignored or silenced. Maybe you can add a voice to the discussion that you haven't seen during research. Maybe there's an ongoing debate or a disagreement. So you want to research perspectives about that debate and that disagreement, so that when it's time for you to add to this discussion in Unit 3, you'll have some of those missing pieces and some of those unsolved problems is where you will step into the conversation. You will say, okay, I'm a scholar. I've been doing my due diligence. I have credibility on this topic. I understand overall what people are discussing. I understand overall the concepts, the arguments, and the perspectives at play in this room, at this table. But I noticed that there's a little bit of disagreement about this, or I noticed that y'all left out this perspective during the conversation, and that's what I'm going to contribute. So like looking for those missing pieces is a place to insert your voice into the dialogue. And it's also interesting because as students, as scholars, and as young people, you do have a unique position to actually contribute something new, something valuable into the discussion. Oftentimes in research, you guys are going to be connecting with long-term ongoing scholarship or sources, political policies, norms surrounding, you guys have such a wide variety of topics, so it's hard to generalize about them, but norms surrounding things like medicine, things like mental health, things like gender, ethnicity, equality, inequality. So you guys are going to be researching these long-term, ongoing, established norms. But from your perspectives as students, as scholars, and as young people, you will be able to update this conversation by reminding the quote-unquote adults in the room that young people's perspectives don't always just fall in line to what has come before, and that y'all are here to shift the perspective and to like refocus and say, hey, this is what matters, this is what's happening, this is what we're seeing and living, etc. So just a few notes about revising and refocusing your research topic so that it becomes genuinely interesting to your goals and your purposes, so that it covers a manageable scope, not an overwhelming view, and so that you are updating the conversation from your perspective. In order to do all of that, we do need to begin to understand the discourse surrounding your topic. Research and academic scholarship is often framed in terms of academic conversation, discussion, dialogue. These kinds of words are often, euphemisms for understanding how research functions. And that's just the meaning of the word discourse in this context. The ongoing conversation surrounding your topic. It's a discussion that takes place across very long periods of time. Sometimes it's centuries, decades, hours, months, whatever it is. And over the course of those long periods of time, we develop standard fundamental assumptions, fundamental guiding questions, big long-term problems that are significant within the discourse, significant for your topic. So we have the long-term fundamentals, but then we also need to account for recent debates, recent types of consequences, recent types of impacts. So it's the past and the present. And we also sometimes need to look into the future. That's where a lot of our independent and analytical thinking is. We're thinking, if this discourse continues along these lines, what is likely to be the outcome? Also, this is a conversation that takes place amongst a diverse amount of participants. Of course, there's private citizens and local community groups. also commercial, political, and government bodies, so like marketing, policies, etc. And then at the quote unquote like higher level, scholarly, academic, and scientific studies. So from the ivory tower down to the everyday lives of regular people, many diverse participants are engaging in this conversation, which is one reason why it's a little bit difficult for us to gather up all of these diverse and various voices. But it is important. We don't want research that at this level, at the undergraduate beginning level, we don't want to zoom in just on one discourse community. We want to see how the discourse encompasses everybody. And then, of course, also a variety of different media and genre for sources, writing, speech, audio, visual, imagery, even down to behaviors. So if you're studying, a topic like racial profiling or police violence, if you're studying a topic about gender expression, if your topic includes references to the certain kinds of maybe practices, rituals, or performances that are relevant and significant to your topic, that include all of those can include analyzing behaviors. So I wanted to throw that out there because it's something we don't often think about and it's often ignored. So anyways, academic discourse really just refers to this ongoing conversation amongst many diverse participants and including a variety of media. Now that we understand generally what discourse refers to, we want to zoom that in and narrow that in to understanding your discourse community. So which people, groups, and organizations, which discourse community is surrounding your topic. So as we listen and take notes, maybe start jotting down members of a discourse community that are relevant and applicable to our topic. In general, these are going to be people, groups, and organizations that share common interests and common investments in the topic. Oftentimes they are joined together by common assumptions, shared values, and shared goals, and they frequently communicate through shared media or shared platforms, whether that's in person, so maybe there's an institution like a medical institution where doctors and patients come together, or maybe it is a subreddit where people who are interested in the same type of music come together, something like that. However, so yes, we are, in order to understand our discourse community, we want to know who has common interests, assumptions, goals, and the space where they communicate. But we also need to emphasize the importance of diversity, disagreement, dissenting viewpoints, and opposing arguments. As critical thinkers, we do not want to come up with a body of research that suggests, oh, everybody who's talking about this topic, we all agree about these same things. We are all united. We're just, one big happy family, kumbaya. That is it's an optimistic and inspiring ideal, but it's very naive. It's not going to fairly and comprehensively explore the entire discussion surrounding your topic. So please don't oversimplify the discourse. Look for those gray areas of complexity where there are disagreements or different ways of looking into the topic. So just a little disclaimer as you guys get started into the research process, not just what's in common, but also where there is difference and disagreement. So along the lines of getting to know your discourse community, there are various levels of community to look at. You can see in this chart, we have what kind of discourse community, what the general purpose is, and what common sources you might expect to find that discourse community communicates through and disseminates. We're not going to read it bit by bit. You guys will have the slide printout, whether you print out at home or whether you wait and I'll give it to you on Tuesday. So we're not going to look at it one by one, but return to this and think about within your topic, related to your personal interests, which areas of these different discourse communities might you be able to dig into and to investigate. We're going to move along. You can pause if you'd like to take some time in your notes to say, okay, I'm ready to think about this. I'm getting some inspiration. So you can pause and jot down certain sources, certain communities that might be relevant to your discourse. But we'll move on to, and as always, pause the video for questions. And maybe I'll also check in with you guys on Tuesday to see if you have questions, like when I'm doing the handout. So do jot down questions. Keep an open mind. Keep connecting the material. How does this apply to my topic? When I think about my topic, can I understand some of these new concepts? Where am I feeling lost and confused? Because those are the things that we need to talk about in order for education to happen. So just always keeping in mind questions, uncertainties, places that you need clarification. So next we're going to look at strategies for entering into the research process. One second. Pausing to stay hydrated. Okay. So before you can enter into that discourse, you do have to locate it. So where is this discourse happening? When is it happening? And how are these messages being distributed? So first, questions for looking at where the discourse is taking place, specifically from the last slide too. What industries, disciplines, and institutions? And institutions isn't always like, education, medicine, law. Sometimes we can say the institution of the family. Sometimes we can say the institution of this type of viewpoint or perspective, things like that. So it's very abstract and it's open to different interpretations. Where are there overlapping areas of discourse? So something where the sciences and the arts might overlap, or the sciences and political policies. Maybe there is some overlap between discourses surrounding the arts and entertainment media along with popular discourse. Things like this. So always looking for areas. If we go back, If we go back to this slide with all the different types of sources, types of communities, and their purpose, I don't know, arranging it into a chart can be misleading because it gives the sense that all of these things are separate, they're mutually exclusive. But even within this, there is overlap. You can be a practitioner, you can have like a discourse community that is both practitioner and commercial. For example, like a psychological journal is going to have articles about practices, theories, research in psychology, but it's also going to have, advertisements and commercialism that is selling, certain medications or certain apps or who knows, like a retreat. So there is overlap between these discourse communities, their purpose or intention, and the sources that you will see. So when you're looking for where your discourse is taking place, you want to pay attention to those overlapping areas. And then, of course, when is this conversation happening? So across centuries, decades, years, hours, as we're exploring our discourse community, as we are building the conversation, but how we are able to see it, we want to have variety. So if all of your sources are basically from the last 10 or 20 years, maybe you want to say, I wonder if there's like a source from like 50 or 60 years ago that might give long-term context. I wonder if there's a source from this year or last year that might give updated context, things like that. And then a variety of different media. So how are these messages reaching their audiences? So what genres are they using? Argument, information or expository sources, like emotional persuasion, like speeches, lectures, so like I like to always point people towards TED Talks when they are launching into the research process. So different types of genres, medias, and types of sources, books, articles, papers, websites, blogs, social media posts, things like that. So how do the messages reach us? Like what type of message, what type of source is it? And then rhetorical strategies or manipulations that these sources use to influence the audience. So maybe within your discourse community, there's a common analogy that's always being made, or maybe there's a common like pattern of thinking that you see over and over and over again. Or maybe within your discourse community, some writers are using manipulative tactics to like stir up fear, or to like inspire false hope, or to perpetuate like a naive narrative that doesn't take into account like the full consequences of something. There's a lot of different topics. So within that, there's a lot of different ways that rhetorical strategies and manipulations might circulate within your discourse community. So as a critical thinker, being aware of those. That doesn't mean I throw that source away if it includes rhetorical manipulation. It just means I say, within this discourse community, we need to watch out for these kinds of statements. So like that. So locating your discourse community involves these methodical steps, seeking sources, finding them, and also taking notes. Always be taking notes right away from the very start of your research process. And the purpose of your notes should help you gather an overview of the main issues and concerns. It can help you understand what kinds of guiding questions are motivating these sources. So if you remember from chapter 5, if you had a chance to read chapter 5, it was all about, kind of unpacking and understanding these like guiding questions, inquiry. It helps you get to see the existing problems, the existing debates, the various viewpoints, positions, or stances toward the debate. So pro, con, anti this, pro that, in favor of this, against that, different viewpoints. Or people saying like, this is the answer. No, that's the answer. It's not always pro and con. Commonly cited facts, data, and examples. So as you're going through your research, you want to note down not just what the arguments were, but also what evidence did they use, because it will give you a scope, and you'll say, okay, within this discourse community, these are the types of evidence that writers are pointing to and looking at. Me, as a member of this discourse community, that means I'm also going to look at those types of examples. Or you can say, we can add to the discussion by bringing in this other type of example. So just getting an overview of the types of evidence, the types of data, facts that people are pointing to support their viewpoints. And then, as always, the important contexts or the important implications and consequences that these people are pointing at in their sources. Not every source is going to include all of these types of information. I mean, you might come to a source that is the only reason it exists is to define a vocabulary term, or you might come to a source where somebody's just like ranting. It's just their viewpoint and just a bunch of arguments, but maybe not a lot of examples, or maybe not a lot of critical thinking about the consequences. So either way, you're not going to find all of this information in every single source. But throughout all the sources, when you synthesize them together, you should come up with at least like these kinds of information about the discourse. I feel like that was abstract and vague, so this is something we might talk about more as we get through the research process, as we check in with each other and say, like, do I have a sense of these things after I've gathered up a few sources? Also, I've created a handout, so if you have a printer, please print it. If not, I am happy to bring it into class. I actually have a stack of them right here. I didn't have them ready last week. Anyways, some guiding questions to help motivate your research by focusing on relevant sources and staying true to your personal goals, your personal interests as a researcher, trying not to get swept along into whatever conversation is easy to find isn't always the conversation that you want to jump into. So just checking in with yourself along the way, like, wait a minute, do I truly care about this? Or have I just gotten myself wrapped up in this conversation because it's the loudest one or it's the biggest one? Finding your niche or your corner in the conversation. So that's how, like, questions to motivate, and then questions to evaluate. So applying critical thinking and course related concepts. Now onto the topic that research is a cyclical process, back and forth, asking questions, seeking answers, finding sources that might lead us to ask new questions. Or maybe we find a source and they had a reference to somebody and you're like, I'd like to look that source up. So jumping from one source, using that as a motivation to find a connected source, etc. It's not a straight line. Question, explanation, answer, analysis, done. It's always a continuous looping and overlapping process that is always being revised, always being repeated and researched. And it ranges from discovering the source, understanding the arguments. So just comprehending, what is the argument, what is the evidence, what is the context. And then a deeper and deeper into critical thinking. So evaluating the source. Is it relevant to my topic? If it's not relevant to your topic, go ahead and throw it out and go back to the search. You don't want to spend your time interpreting, analyzing, and synthesizing a source that doesn't coordinate with your goals. So once you find it and you understand what it's about and you find that it's not relevant, or maybe it's not accurate, if it's not reliable, throw it away before doing that deeper critical thinking. So after judging and evaluating the source, we go into interpreting those deeper layers of meaning. We go into analyzing the values, codes, and ideologies that this source either supports or resists. And then we synthesize the connections. So how does this source connect to all the other sources that I've been seeing so far? Does it add to one side of the debate? Does it introduce a dissenting viewpoint? Does it connect us to the fundamental long-term ongoing questions? Does it update the conversation by showing us recent questions and debates? How does this source connect to my body of research? So now that we kind of understand the purpose, the goal, and the method of academic research, we can get into accessing some key sources. Before we just jump into what the sources are, let's just keep in mind why we're doing the research and what we want to accomplish. So first of all, why? Compiling a body of relevant, credible, and valuable research is crucial to conveying your own sense of authority when it comes time for you to argue about this topic. All the work that you're doing here in Unit 2 is going to set you up to compose and persuade a valid argument of your own. At this beginning level. So for some of us, we've been thinking about these topics for a couple of years. For some of us, we just picked a source because we had to for the class, whatever it is. But at this level, it's important to cast a wide net, to research broadly across a wide variety of media, types of media, including primary sources, so direct first-hand examples, arts and expressive works, observations, surveys, polls and questionnaires, interviews, etc. Secondary sources, so arguments that are based on evidence and research, TED Talks, radio programs. Like, I'm always pointing people to those two sources, like as start points, not as finish points, but TED Talks and then NPR interviews or radio broadcasts. Like on the NPR website, they have the archives for like everything that they've talked about before, and it's searchable. So you search in things that are relevant to your topic, and you can pull up, interviews, stories, a whole bunch of different research. And I like it too because it's audio, because it's from the radio, and then they also often have a transcript of it too. Anyways, secondary sources, so arguments, opinions, and viewpoints. And then tertiary sources, which are dictionaries, encyclopedias. They don't offer anything other than what is typically supposed to be seen as, valuable, objective information, really focused on, defining and understanding a concept. So whether it's like a legitimate dictionary or the quote unquote urban dictionary or an encyclopedia, whatever it is, those are like a textbook even. And then also a final note before we just jump into how do we access sources. We want to prioritize those secondary sources that include arguments, viewpoints, and opinions. That's the main body of our research. So if we come out with 8 sources, we probably want 5 of them to be strictly related to viewpoint and argument. If we come out with 12 sources, we probably want 9 of them, 8 or 9 of them, to just be differing viewpoints, opinions, arguments. Less attention to strictly expository information, less attention to here's an example, here's a primary source example, like a photo or an image that illustrates my topic. That will be great in Unit 3. Where you're finding a primary source and you're analyzing it to support your own argument. But today, for Project 2, we want to find other people's arguments. So that will be the body of our research. Let me know if that's not clear. And as we go to, we can look at, this is my source. Is this a secondary source? We'll talk about it a lot along the way. So jumping in. Gathering firsthand data. So you can conduct interviews with somebody who's invested or informed about your topic. This will be people like professors, professionals, people who have deep personal experience with your topic. In order to conduct an interview, I want you to prepare 1 or 2 just open-ended questions. So you can, tell them, this is the research topic I'm interested in. In general, this is kind of like my guiding question. What can you share from your point of view? And that will lead them into talking about various different things as well. Once you just let somebody begin talking, they often have quite a bit to say. When you reach out to the person that you want to interview, just introduce your topic, give a little bit of context, a little bit of goals, try and keep it brief, respect people's time, and ask if you can schedule just a 10-minute chat. Just don't take up too much of somebody's time. Don't come at them with a list of questions that you're going to ask them for an hour. And then during the interview, ask permission if you can record the conversation and take notes, and inform them that, you're only going to use these quotations for a class project and you're not intending to publish it anywhere else. So make sure you have consent for all of this. You can also conduct widespread surveys and polls. I recommend coming up with maybe 3 to 5 meaningful questions, multiple choice answers, whether it's, strongly agree, neutral, disagree, whatever, or whether it's examples I don't know, depending on your topic, what questions you might want to ask. And then you want to distribute this poll widely. You want at least 100 results. So I can help you distribute it. You can distribute it amongst your own communities, your discourse communities. There should be a deadline when the poll is finished. And if you're doing a poll or scheduling interviews or observations, you should do that soon, because we have only 5 more weeks to work on the project. Only 3.5 more weeks are going to be spent during research. So get these out right away. When you get your results back from the poll or the survey, you want to tally up the results and quantify them into some kind of a chart or a graph or something. And then field observations is another type of first-hand evidence. So going to a place that is relevant to your topic and making observations. If possible, try to do observations more than once, so that you don't like overgeneralize, like, oh, I saw this thing one time and now I have all of these wide casting ideas about it. But I mean, I know we have to manage our time, and it's just a essay, so just whatever seems right to you. I often avoid asking people to do like to video record the observation, because I feel like that could be invasive or disrespectful to privacy. So just if you can write it down in a journal, or you can use your voice recorder while you're observing to say like, oh, this is what's happening and that's what I see, and you know, record your notes like that, and then you can come back and transcript that and use that as a source. You can use photographs from your field observations, just, you know, use your discretion and be respectful. But you can bring photographs in from field observation. Primary sources, this would be works of art, anything from entertainment media. So whether you guys know what entertainment media is, observing or experiencing an actual event or a performance. Primary sources are also interviews, like if you access an interview like online, that's a primary source. Photographs, documentary films, advertisements, memorabilia, artifacts, clothing, merchandise, paraphernalia, in general. Primary sources are motivated by recording an experience, experiencing something, or using a material. So first hand things, you know, often primary source. They're not about arguments and perspectives as much. At DVC, one way to get into primary sources is to connect with clubs or affinity groups. So if you want to do an interview or go to an event related to communities of pride or the automotive club, things like that, like Dreamers Alliance, we have a art exhibit coming up next week on Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Pack Theater, and this is on the Pleasant Hill campus of DVC. There's an exhibition for like themes about migration. So if your topic is connected to migration or immigrant experiences, you might go to this art exhibition and analyze, interpret, and bring in, you know, you can take a photo of some of the works as long as you are very carefully citing the author. And I would say speak with somebody who is directing and hosting the exhibition and say, hey, I'm checking in. I'm doing research on this topic for a class project. I want to know if it's okay if I you know, take some photos, or look, can you help me cite this information for my paper? Because I mean, it's a college community. That's what they want to hear. You know, like it might feel awkward to go up and have that conversation, but that's what college is all about. And like, trust me, everybody who's in like the more leadership position, like a professor or a gallery director, whatever, we love that shit. I mean, we love it. So you will be met well. So primary sources, we have clubs, we have organizations that you can get into and see their events, their activities. You can interview members of those communities. We have this art exhibit coming up. I think we missed, Thursday. I don't know. We missed something that was today. I think it's not relevant for this section though. Only my other class needed it. It was like art education. What else? I saw a flyer on campus recently that was like next weekend, not the one coming up, but the next one. I think it was like in Concord, I think at Concord Pavilion. I can't remember where, but if you're on campus, you might find the same flyer. It was like a arts and music mashup event. So if your topic is connected to music, I think we have 2 people in this section, and I know my other sections have people who are doing music and art. You know, if you go to that event, take pictures, you know, write down if somebody, like if you can get an interview or a quick something with like an artist, I don't know, like go to the event and see what you can gather for primary source research. So next, searching on the open internet. So everyone knows how to do this already. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will just advise a couple of strategies. So first, just search in your search terms and just skim through the first couple pages. So take notes. Note down what search term or terms that you used, and then as you scroll, don't click anything. Just look at page 1 and page 2, and jot down some key ideas and concepts from the headlines, from that first little like line of preview, maybe from the URL, so it'll tell you where the source came from or what the website's name is, and that will give you so much data for like the key ideas, the main concerns, popular questions and arguments, who is talking about it. So what kinds of people, institutions, and organizations are engaging in this discourse. So yeah, like just do that as a place to get started before you actually start choosing which sources you want. And then when you're ready to start searching like in a focused way, use quote marks around your search phrases, because that'll make sure that this phrase, all as one, is included in the sources. And then you can use advanced search options to say like what time range you want it to be from, what source type or what file type you want it to be. So those are just some tips for web research. Of course, we want to send you guys all to the DVC Library, such a wonderful source of a wealth of information. So to get into the DVC Library online, you can go in Insight, you can go to the DVC Support Hub, or from inside of a Canvas course, you can also find the DVC Support Hub. And then get familiar. The library has a ton of options. You're welcome to go to Pleasant Hill or San Ramon, whichever one is closer to where you live, where you work, where you're hanging out. So whatever is more convenient. We really have a one college, 2 campuses. So anything, you have a right to anything at San Ramon and anything at Pleasant Hill. You can work one-on-one with actual real librarians. So you can either just text a quick question or you can schedule a longer appointment. And then you can also access online library databases that can connect you with a range and a variety of sources, from popular to academic, a variety of different media, and you can get to this anytime, anywhere, on pretty much any device. So jumping into the library, one obvious option is sifting through the stacks, as we call it, so the bookshelves. You can browse through books that are related to your topic and your subject matter. This can help you glean or discover key ideas, questions, concerns, perspectives, problems, and debates. And the way you can do this is by looking at the book titles, the subtitles of the books. Open it up at the table of contents and look at the chapter titles. Look at the author names, because it can give you a general idea of who is talking about this. And when you're looking at authors and trying to find out like the canonical voices of your discourse, pay attention and please be equity minded. If you notice that you have a lot of male authors, try and find some female authors. If you notice that you have a lot of Euro-descended authors, like, quote unquote, just like white people, try and find voices from other ethnic groups. If you find that you see a lot of voices from like before the year 2000, try and find more recent voices. So just be equity minded. It's far too easy to get swept into the dominant narrative and to find yourself accidentally unintentionally just repeating the status quo, or just repeating common ideas without maybe taking the time to think deeply about, like, hey, wait a minute, we need to find other people's voices. We need a diverse and, multiple approach to this topic. So just be mindful of that. And then you can also just get a scope for how long this topic has been being developed. You can look at publication dates, see what's the oldest book you can find, what's the newest book you can find. Also in the library, you can get access to other media like magazines. It's not all just books in the library. So sifting through the stacks. If you find books that you want, here's how I recommend recording and researching this for a later date. If you found a few books or sources that stood out to you, stack them up, and then look at a pile of them and look at the spine. So a stack of books where you can see the spine, and take a picture. That way you can remember all of these titles and all of these author names. I also advise you can use your smartphone if you want to take an excerpt from just one chapter of the book. You could make a photocopy, on a copier machine, if that's what you like to do, but I like just doing it on my phone. Just, choose the introduction, or just the conclusion, or maybe there's one chapter, or maybe it's an anthology and you just wanted one of those sources. So to use your phone to take pictures. My trick is, if you're taking a picture from the left side, the odd numbered pages, tip it like an L shape to where the right side of the book is up. I guess that would be more of a J shape, to take a picture of that page. And then when you want the even pages, tip it to it where it's an L shape, so that the page you're taking a picture of is laying flat. I'll show you in class. I'm sorry I can't demonstrate it, but that tip has saved me a lot of frustration. Otherwise, the picture that you're taking, the page is all bent and it's like a wave, and then later you can't really read it. So anyways, that's one tip. Using an app like Tiny Scanner will help you create a PDF of just, you take, 20 pictures and then you save it as a PDF. So you just have the one file. And then do not forget to take pictures that include the title and publishing information page. This is the page that has the title of the book, the author of the book, the editor, the volume, the edition, whatever it may be, the date that it was published, who it was published by. It has all of that information that you will need in the Works Cited. So moving on, in the library, you can also work with librarians. You can text 925-705-4031. You can just ask questions. There is Ask a Librarian 24/7 in the library website. It takes 24 hours, I think, to get the response. But they're always responding. It just, they have a lot of students are asking questions, so it can take longer, especially as we get through close to the midterm point of the semester. Everybody's doing a research project right now, not just us. So, be patient. And then also you can schedule a 30-minute research appointment. Again, Pleasant Hill or San Ramon, you can do it. Actually, I think it's only Pleasant Hill or Zoom. Either way, in person or online, 30-minute appointments. Librarians will help sit with you and help you think of ideas if you don't really know what kind of research questions you want to ask. They'll help you locate the sources. They'll help you evaluate them, so telling how they're relevant and credible and stuff like that. They'll even help you cite them. So they'll help you a lot. We also have a ton of online library databases. I went through and pulled out a few that I think are going to be helpful for us in this project, and I listed them in terms of encyclopedias, academic databases, video archives, and news organizations, so that we could have a bit of a variety. They're listed here, and this slide is on the slide handout, so I'm not going to read them, but it already helps us to get a range of different types of sources. And I guess my final note, I'll go back. I didn't, oh, I forgot to put a slide. Whoops. I forgot to put a slide for on the open web portion. But I mean, I mentioned it enough times. I forgot to put a slide specifically about things like TED Talk, NPR, and there's one more that's slipping my mind right now. So my bad. A final note of the lesson, documenting your research. So it's important every step along the way, keep a firm grasp on the documentation, or you're going to be doing this research for nothing. You're going to have to redo it. So take accurate, detailed notes. This will be essential for managing your workload. It's so easy to get confused or lost, to fall behind during the course of this project. If you see a source, whether it's out in the world or during research, if you don't have if you don't at the moment have the energy or the care or the interest to full on, take notes and everything, at least take a picture and go back to it later. When you find a source that you want to use, download it and save it into your English 126 project number 2 research sources folder. Online, you can print the source as a PDF. You can take a screenshot. You can, if you took a photo on your phone, you can upload that into your drive, etc. Annotate your sources, mark them up. So whether you print it out and use pen and paper to take notes, or maybe you have a digital note-taking device, take notes, highlight the key ideas so that when you come back and look at that source again, you know where to point your eyes, so to speak. Evaluate those sources right away and discard useless material so that you don't spend time studying it. Accurately track your citation information. If you need help with MLA Works Cited, get help early. Come to me, go to a librarian, open up the internet and go to the Purdue OWL website. Begin interpretation and analysis. So that critical thinking, begin that early. Don't save it until you have 6 sources that now you need to interpret the deeper layers of meaning and the larger consequences of all 6 of those sources. So start early, and then also begin synthesizing connections as soon as possible. This helps you kind of keep an eye on your body of research. Are you tending to be lopsided? Are you tending to overlook things? Are you getting a good variety? So start making connections right away. And remembering too that this is a cyclical process. So when you do a little bit of evaluation, you might find, oh, I need to refine my search terms. I keep getting irrelevant sources. When you start making those synthesis connections, like, oh, I have all this viewpoint, you'll refine your search terms and you'll get specific, like, oh, I want this view. I want the alternate viewpoint now. Or, you'll find that you have all recent things and you need something more historical, or you find that you have all written sources and you need something multimedia. So whatever it may be, synthesizing those questions right away. The follow-up for today's lesson is to read chapter 6 in the textbook. On Canvas, it will say which of the little readings inside that I want us to focus on. And also start your research 2 to 3 sources that help explain key ideas, key concepts within your topic. Save those sources, annotate them, cite them. Next class, we will begin building the annotated bibliography, and you will need to be able to access those sources during class. So put them in your drive, make in your research notes that you turn in, cite the URL at the very least. All right, that's it from me. Questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, ask them in Canvas in the replies to this discussion. Jot them down in your notes and we will talk about it together asynchronously and also when I see you in class next week. Take care.